So my schedule got flipped around a little bit this week, which was annoying, but the good news is it gave me enough time to put together this special edition of the Weekly Rant, covering a topic I've been wanting to cover for a while now. But first, let's address this issue. Okay? Everyone in the comment box seems to be commenting about my hair. I swear it's the lighting, okay? It doesn't always look this bad, but this lighting's just, it's like, look, here, see, there's plenty of hair here. It's not like I'm completely bald. Yeah, there's not as much up front as I'd like, but it's not like I'm totally bald yet. So I'm gonna hang on to it for a little while longer, if that's okay with you. And the whole forward comb, it's just, I don't know, like I said, it's this damn lighting. If I could fix it, I would. I don't know how. This past week, Dan Shack took to Twitter to talk a little bit about Epic Poker. He wrote, "Refrained from comment on Epic Poker, but now feel that they were at the very least guilty of gross mismanagement while I was being lied to. More upset with Epic management because they knew I was attempting to find them help at the same time. Hashtag no more keeping my mouth shut." Who I really feel sorry for are the 22 employees of Epic Poker who have put their lives on hold while waiting for the rescue. Hashtag the real victims. Also this week, Matt Glantz finally resigned from the EPL Standards and Practice Committee, tweeting, "Still pulling for the Epic Poker League to survive, but with much regret, I've decided to resign from the Standards and Practice Committee." I hate to say I told you so, guys, but I really did tell you guys. You're dealing with absolute snakes and scum here. It becomes more and more obvious as more information is released that Annie Duke and Jeffrey Pollock's interests in starting the EPL were not to create a sustainable business plan. Their only goal, as I said before event number 1, was to hope for a change in US legislation so they could enter the online poker market. They were never honest about that, but Annie Duke has never really been honest about much in her life. Much like a cockroach, Annie has been able to survive in her industry despite repeated lies. She's always been able to find someone to dupe, and for every person she's crossed who ultimately comes to me and says, "You were right, I feel personally bad for not doing more to stop it from happening." I could easily write about 6 books about all the shady things this woman's done, but I don't want to waste what will ultimately be a positive blog by spending too much time talking about this cockroach. If you'd like to read more about Annie's past antics, I highly recommend a book called Positively Fifth Street, which was written by James McManus, who that year, actually when he wrote it, ended up making the final table at the World Series of Poker and ended up having to run into Annie a few times along the way. There's a link down below to pick up the book if you're interested. I'd like to cover just a few of the more recent highlights since her time at UB until now. Before then, the stories of her angle shooting and shadiness are much worse, but at least she wasn't being paid by an organization. After the UB super user scandal, Annie was the driving force behind trying to convince people of a new UB, and did countless interviews supporting the new management team. Problem is, on many of those interviews, she contradicted herself repeatedly and flat out lied about both her involvement in the company as well as her knowledge of what happened. Post-scandal, you claim that you had no idea the God Mode super user program even existed. That's a bold-faced lie. In your defense, you actually did warn people about this program and thought it was a bad idea. And there's no actual evidence that you used God Mode to cheat. But to say you didn't know it existed is a bold-faced lie. You knew. In 2004, you were lucky enough to be invited into a one-table sit-and-go for $2 million by Harris. I was at that table, and part of the rules were that you were not allowed to make a deal. I remember players discussing a deal when there were like 7 left, and I specifically said, y'all can make a deal when I bust because I'm not doing one. Three-handed, you, Howard, and Helmuth struck a deal. Later in interviews, you claimed, no, there was no deal. But Helmuth publicly told the truth and said, yes, we made a deal. You claiming that Helmuth is lying? Really? Are you claiming that Phil Helmuth is lying, or are you lying? Are you telling the truth now? If somebody asked you that question now, did you make a deal or not? What are you going to say? You lying cockroach. You appeared on Celebrity Apprentice and ultimately received scorn from Joan Rivers for being a liar. Joan said some awful things about the poker world, but in fairness, if you were the only poker player that I met, I would assume, yeah, conniving, lying, cheating scum. It's not really much of a stretch. It's blatantly obvious that you lied to Joan and her daughter Melissa off camera, which is exactly why they were so furious with you. Well, I'm sure it was interesting to know that you were a great woman who can cook and give great head. I was thoroughly embarrassed to be a poker player after your performance on that show. During your time at Epic Poker, you drafted a letter to the players explaining to them that the 4th and final event of the season was being postponed due to scheduling conflicts. Instead of telling the truth, the company was broke and owed millions, you framed that letter to make it seem like, oh, the EPL was just doing this for the good of the players. You're anti-ladies events because you don't think there's a need to segregate people by gender at the poker table, yet you introduce yourself to executives as the best female poker player in the world! And that was your tagline on your website until you were pressured to take it down by me and others who found that absolutely laughable. So when convenient for you, you're a female poker player, but then you also have the hypocritical stance against ladies events in general. Now I want to make this really clear. I'm not questioning your integrity. I'm denying its existence. The good news is there's plenty of strong, powerful, intellectual, and most importantly, honest female poker players out there today, more so than any time in history, really. We'll start with Jennifer Harmon. Jennifer's been my closest friend ever since moving to Vegas, and she's taught me a lot about the game, but more importantly, helped me on the right path as a young kid living in Vegas. I got poker lessons and life lessons. I've always had nothing but respect for Jennifer. I trust her implicitly and admire what she's been able to do in her career. Jen's never been much for tournaments. Instead, she prefers playing with the big boys in the biggest game in the world. She's the only woman in the world that's ever been able to succeed in that environment. Her only rival in terms of mixed game skills would be Maria Ho. Despite Jen not being big on tournaments, to this day, she remains the only woman in the world with 2 World Series of Poker bracelets. She also ranks a respectable 6th on the all-time money list for women. Next up, Kathy Liebert. Kathy's always been the tournament girl, and she sits atop the list for women in terms of career earnings. Kathy won the first ever Party Poker Million, which actually helped spawn the creation of the WPT. Steve Lipskin was the one who created that show and then further created the WPT along with Lyle Berman. When Kathy won, she had the opportunity to profit from that success by potentially signing endorsement deals or doing media to raise her profile, but she chose not to. She turned down interview requests, had no intention of anything but playing poker. Seeing Kathy all made up is a rarity. She's simply more comfortable in purple, loose-fitting clothes. And I prefer the other pick, but she's a poker player first and could care less about that stuff, and I gotta be honest, there's some purity in that, and I can respect it. Rounding out the old guard is Cindy Violette. I bet she probably hates me using the term old guard. Cindy's also got a WSOP win, and she's been a successful stud player for a long time now. When Cindy enters a room, it really does brighten the room up. She's full of positive energy, and I've never heard a negative thing said about her. Veganism is also a passion of hers that I share, and I think her lack of playing recently has more to do with pushing that cause than anything else. Before I get to the big 4, we can't forget a fresh-faced Annette Oberstad, who, at just 18 years of age, will undoubtedly hold the record for youngest bracelet winner of all time. And newcomer Melanie Weisner, who's earned the respect of her peers and has become a bit of a traveling vagabond, preferring the European tour as opposed to playing in the US. Now to the big 4. Let's start with Vanessa Selbst. Vanessa came onto the scene just a few years ago, and she's pretty much been winning everything in sight. The most impressive part of all that is that she's been doing all that winning while at the same time successfully getting her law degree at Yale. I would describe Vanessa as tough, competitive, and confident. She knows she's really good at this game, and she makes no excuses for it. Now, she's currently ranked number 2 on the women's all-time money list, but is charging hard, and most expect her to be number 1 at some point. Despite all her winning, she still has some critics who think she's just lucky.
I think it's just my style is really aggressive, obviously, and so I tend to amass a very large, I have a lot of variance and swings, and so in the tournaments where I amass a very big stack, I go on to win, and in the ones where I don't, I bust out, earlier on, and so it's fun. I love playing that style of poker.
Now that's exactly what makes Vanessa tough to play against, but obviously that style can sometimes make her look a little bit silly.
Jack 7 of diamonds.
Vanessa maybe steaming a bit after that last hand. Looks like she's getting right back on the horse.
Raises to 1300 as Fondiari quickly out. Spirit rockets for Prahlad Friedman.
Vanessa knows her own reputation, so she knows Prahlad could be 3-betting her light, thinking she's raising light, which she is. And if that's the case, she could get into some real trouble here.
4-bet to 13,200 with the jack high. It is 5 bets to 35,000. She puts in 6 bets with jack high.
Oh boy.
1062.
$106,200 is now the bet.
This is an absolute punt. Let's count the hang time.
Alright, I'm all in.
Prahlad is all in.
It is a mistake, I call.
Vanessa calls.
I can't.
Aces for Prahlad.
No.
He's got aces.
Yeah, I know.
I'll bet you
How
got
many do you
aces.
want to run it?
He has aces.
It's like 100%.
Of course. She has ace, king, or kings.
Nope, I have nothing.
So they're going to run it 3 times.
Almost spoke to it and couldn't do it.
I think I speak for Vanessa when I say, "Hurrah!"
River 10 of hearts, and Prahlad has locked up a third of the pot worth over 113K.
I'm such a Why do I do this to myself? Every time. Not every time. I usually don't do this to myself anymore. What are you laughing at?
I'm not laughing. I'm just,
Pretty sure he was laughing.
Here comes the second of 3 runs. 8 king 5 2 diamonds flush draw for Vanessa. Turn 5 of hearts. No diamond, 3 of clubs.
What a brick.
break ball.
Super brick.
Bricktastic.
Run number 3. 4 6 king 3 more bricks. This is getting hard to watch.
Not even a sweat.
Vanessa's dead to 2 pair trips or a straight. All of them runner. Or else Prahlad's going to need a wheelbarrow to bring all his money home.
Nice playing with you, Vanessa.
Nice playing with you.
Good playing with you, Vanessa.
Why not win one of them?
Good playing with you, Vanessa.
Why did I do this? You understand? You have any idea why I did this?
Honestly, I don't know why you did that. I mean,
I mean, you can guess why I did.
I understand, but there's like he's up, he's playing solid. Like I just didn't think he's ever doing that right there.
Really to 35. 35 isn't easy because then I have to put in my entire stack. It's an easy 5-bet form with air.
I just didn't think that was a spot he's getting out of line.
Oh, really? I thought he was.
The other Vanessa, Vanessa Rousso, really made a name for herself with consistent results and was able to really turn that success into a bit of an empire, signing a deal with GoDaddy, doing a spread for Sports Illustrated, and also giving back by doing tons of teaching.
Yeah, I run Big Slick Boot Camp, which is a program where basically people come in for like a one-day boot camp to learn poker strategy at different levels, depending on what camp it is. Every year we run at the PCA in the Bahamas a ladies camp, designed specifically for ladies, no guys allowed.
She obviously sees the game very different than most. She's much more analytical and math-oriented. I think she might have went to Duke or something like that. Totally inside joke. You know, some of you will get that, some of you won't. Whatever. The following clip is a little bit of evidence of how she sort of breaks down hands using math.
Vanessa's always mixing it up. She took flying lessons when she was in law school. She did a photo shoot for Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and she was a celebrity judge on Bank of Hollywood on E!
Joe Surrock with 10-9 of clubs and a raise to 13,000. 4 deuce for Nachman Berlin into the muck. Vanessa with pocket sixes.
Vanessa recommends The Art of War by Sun Tzu. When you're reading the book, she says you'll learn game theory by taking the word war and replacing it with tournament poker. Seems to me it'll take a lot longer to read the book that way.
Well, David Bach with Queen Jack of Hearts.
His nickname is Gunslinger. He bought the hat playing in the Aussie Millions one year.
3 players to flop. 6, 10, 9. What a flop. Rousso hits a set to lead, but Bach is open-ended and he checks. Surrock hits top 2 pair.
Surrock, 23-year-old Las Vegas pro, 13 World Series cashes. Twice he's finished runner-up in World Series events. He's getting low on chips here.
Almost $1 million in live earnings for Surrock. He bets 25,000. Now to Vanessa with her set of sixes.
Raise.
And a min raise to 50,000.
Bach says his strength is getting inside people's heads. Don't know what's inside his head at this moment.
He says all in.
What do you do when you lead out with top 2 pair, then it's raised and re-raised all in behind you, and this decision is for your remaining chips? It's hard to imagine Joe Surrock feels real good about his hand right now.
He folds.
I don't think I can fold this. Like, worst case scenario, I guess I'm 32%. Worst case. I mean, if you flop the nuts, I mean, I guess that makes sense. But I think you would do that with 9s and 10s. I think. I'm allowed to talk to myself, right? Am I allowed to talk to myself? I don't know. I don't want to be breaking any rules. Just don't answer yourself. You're allowed to talk. You're all right.
A huge moment for Vanessa.
Yeah, you're Vanessa Rousso. You can talk.
I mean, I got to think that it's going to re-raise 9s or 10s pre-flop. It's not set over set. 7-8 makes sense, but I mean, I'm 40%. 32, 35. Again.
392.
If she puts him on a straight, she actually would not be getting quite the right price to call. And of course, if she puts him on a bigger set, she's pretty much dead. But those are the only hands that beat Vanessa.
I have to call.
And she does make the call to put Bach at risk. And Bach needs help. The turn card, and Bach wastes little time in hitting his straight. Vanessa is crushed.
That is so sick.
Rousso now needs to board the pair, as long as it's not the 9 of hearts, which would give Bach a straight flush to knock him out.
The river card. The 2 of spades seals the double up for Bach, who's on the uptick again with almost $1 million.
Why?
What can you do? You played it fine.
I don't know why. Oh well.
She currently ranks number 5 on the women's all-time money list, thanks to a big year in 2009 where she cashed for $1.3 million. Next up, the lovely Maria Ho. Now, Maria's a bit of a throwback, more in the Jennifer Harmon mold. She's actually been mostly a mixed game player. She grinded her bankroll up the hard way by working up to higher and higher limits of mixed games. And outside of Jennifer, she's literally the only woman you'll see playing games like 4 and 800 mix. Most people don't know the truth about Maria, but she's been like a real legit grinder for quite a while. Since doing Amazing Race, she's gotten more recognition, but it's been less about her poker skills.
Just like the world is art, 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 art.
Much like Jennifer, Maria was never really much of a tournament player, but she's been playing more of them recently and had a monster score at the World Series Poker this year, the largest by any woman at the World Series of Poker in Vegas, which puts her at number 6 all-time on the Women's World Series of Poker earnings list. I think what's most impressive about Maria is how well-liked she is. In the last 6 months or so, she's become one of my closest friends, and she's really easy to root for. While I was doing research for this thing, I came across this clip, which I think you'll enjoy.
Let's talk with Maria Ho, a professional poker player who in 2007 became the last woman standing in the World Series of Poker Championship event. Also with us, Dee Myers, who was the White House press secretary for President Clinton, the first woman to hold the position. She's also author of the book, Why Women Should Rule the World. We also welcome Susie Orman, the author and personal finance expert, host, of course, of Susie Orman Show on CNBC, and Katrina Furlick, a neurosurgeon and author. She was the first woman admitted to the neurosurgery residency program at the University of Pittsburgh Medical School. Maria, when you sit down at the table with a bunch of men, because I mean, the number of women who play poker professionally is much smaller, obviously, than the number of men. Are you treated differently? Do you find that a disadvantage all the time, or are there advantages to it as well?
There are no inherent disadvantages to being female at the poker table, and any stereotypes that men might bring when they see a woman walk through those doors and put down their money and sit down and play with them, that's always something you can use to your advantage, because anytime anyone's going to underestimate you, that's the time when you go in for the kill. That's the time when you catch them off their guard, and that's what you need to become a winning poker player.
You go, girl! I was really impressed with how well she handled herself on that panel of strong women. She never tried to overpower the discussion, and she kept what she had to say relevant to her expertise. Lastly, we have Liv Boeree. When she became a free agent, I urged PokerStars to snatch her up, because in my eyes, she's the absolute complete package. There's 5 criteria you look for when you want someone to represent your poker brand. You got looks, likability, well-spoken, results, and work ethic. Liv gets high marks in all 5 categories. She's obviously attractive, she's well-liked by everyone, she's intelligent and well-spoken, she has a monster EPT San Remo win under her belt, and she puts up consistent results each year, both live and online. And boy, do PokerStars make her work. She's been a great face for the company in the UK, she's regularly attending those UKIP events, and she does countless interviews. She also happens to be a blast to party with. She jams. She shakes her booty. I showed that. That's so ridiculous. In 2010, Liv cashed for $1.8 million, but things weren't always that way for Liv. Upon my research, I dug up a little clip of Liv before she was rich and famous, where she appeared on the UK version of that game show, Friend or Foe. Let's take a look.
If you both choose the split ball, you will split the £6,500.50 and go home with £3,250.25 each. If one of you chooses steal, one of you chooses split, whoever chooses the steal ball will go home with all the £6,500.50. Whoever chooses the split ball will go home with nothing. If you are both greedy piggy-wiggies and you both choose the steal ball, you go home with nothing. Today will be a waste of time. Do you understand this? Okay. I'm going to give you a little time now to discuss what you're about to do.
It's a split. I wouldn't be here unless we'd done the integrity thing. I had that run of killers and we've come good. And it's a split. Simple as that. Split and split. Job done. I've got nothing else to say.
I've got nothing to say. I'm dead chuffed. Go ahead. I actually really like you.
I like you too. It's a fantastic night, and I can't believe that we've actually come good. So I think we've worked out. We could have been done in on steel.
Please don't let me
I'm not going to. I've got my wife up there. I've got all the kids watching. I'm going split. Simple as that. So split, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a simple choice, but a hard one. Okay, Liv, Stuart. choose either split or steal. Now, just hold it up. Okay. Split or steal? You have just stolen £6,500.
The only way to make money in this game is to steal. That was part of my strategy from the start. When I saw Stuart reveal that split ball, I was just like, yes, $6.5 grand. $6.5 grand. $6.5 grand. $6.5 grand.
Awesome job, Liv. You had like a billion tells. I can't believe that guy didn't read right through it. She's absolutely right, by the way. She understands math and game theory, and the correct move on that show is to always steal. Now, while Liv clearly deceived and lied to this guy, it's all part of the rules of the game, much like when people lie on a show like Survivor. Sometimes I wonder if Annie Duke and Howard Lederer's parents caused them to believe that life is a game, and that deceiving people in life is just part of the game. When it comes to real-life business decisions and ethics, both have shown that they're capable and more than willing to lie if it benefits them. Morals and business ethics, be damned. Since this was a special edition of the Rant, I thought we'd do a special edition of the Degen story of the week and have the ladies represent one time. This week's Degen is none other than Jennifer Harmon. When Jennifer used to get stuck in a game, she'd order a Coors Light and then inevitably go on this massive rush and turn a $100,000 loss into a $100,000 win in like no time. It got to the point where Elia Lesra would see her order a Coors Light and just rack his chips fearing the power of the drunk Jen. Well, one night, Jen decided to take it a step further. Now, these games are always a mix of 8 games, like anything from Raz to Triple Draw, Omaha, Hold'em, whatever. So one night when Jen was stuck, she blurted out, "Let's play straight Hold'em and I'll play every single hand." Now, Jen is definitely one of the best limit Hold'em players in the world, but there's like no way these guys could pass up that offer. Sure enough, Jennifer plays every single hand that night and somehow walks away the big winner. From that day forward, the game was actually named. It's called Jen Hold'em, and ever since that night, no one will ever play it with her again. But that's all I got for you guys this week. Just wanted to thank the Hendon Mob for their great site. That's exactly where I got all the stats on the ladies, so if you want to see more, check out the link down below. Next week, the show is going to look very different for sure, because I'm going to be in Monte Carlo for the EPT Grand Final. There's actually 3 big tournaments I plan on playing there. First, you got the super high roller 100k euro buy-in, which could end up being a really juicy event, and I always look forward to those. Then, of course, you got the main event, followed by the not so super high roller 25k euro buy-in at the end. After that, I'll be in Toronto playing some scoop events, so you won't see this backdrop for a while. Now, since this show is for the ladies, I thought I'd go in a different direction this week with the picks package. You won't see any hot women, but there's plenty of eye candy for you ladies out there. Yeah, enjoy.